Well, good evening and welcome to what is a truly beautiful evening here in the northeast of Scotland. I've come to a woodland that I only discovered 4 days ago. It's literally a 10-minute drive from my house and I didn't know it existed. And I've got to say it's one of the most magical places I've been to for a long time. And the other day I was here, just went for a walk, I just enjoyed it, I just started to explore it. And I was really excited by a lot of the different things that I found while I was here. And this evening I've come back here with all my camera gear. And the plan is that I'm going to try out some of the techniques that Kaisa Seren spoke about in the interview that I put up on my channel on Thursday. She's an ICM photographer. She's taught me a lot about that genre of photography as it's something that's quite new to me, and I'm excited to put some of the techniques to the test. And it's all going to begin with this tree here, which sadly was blown down in some of the storms that we had at the beginning of the year. But I love the colours here, I love the textures, I love the beautiful needles within this area, and I just want to try some ICM on this and see what I can create. So that's where this evening is beginning, some beautiful creative ICM in this new woodland that I think is going to be somewhere that I'm going to be visiting very regularly from now on. It's such a beautiful place. And just listen to those birds singing. There was one technique that Kaisa spoke about in relation to ICM photography that I've never tried, and that was having your shutter speed at like 5 seconds, which I thought that would be far too long to do this style of photography. But some of her images really showcased that this was a really exciting thing to do because you have enough time to move your camera, keep it still on the subject, move it up and down, and then move it side to side. So you get a really nice blurred feel, but you still know what you're photographing. Now, I stupidly have left my ND filters in the car. I wanted to be as light as possible tonight. I've got my polarizer with me, but I left all my other filters in the car. Right now, the shortest shutter speed that I can get without any filters is 1.6 seconds. So it's not quite long enough to do what I was hoping to do. I'm in quite a bright part of the woodland here, so I might go deeper into some of the depths of the woodland to get less light to try out this technique. But what I'm trying to do right now is pick out some of these lovely lines within here and just try and move the camera around and just see what I can do with the gear that I've got with me right now. So to increase that, I put my ISO right down to 64. I've got my F number at F16. I might even increase that actually further. Let's go to F22, which is something that I would never normally shoot at, but because we're doing abstract photography here, do you know what? This camera goes all the way to F32. And that's given me 5 seconds. I didn't think about that. I never go above F16. So this is quite an exciting prospect, this. Let's see what I can create with this. It'll give me enough time to freeze the image, to move it up and down, and to move it left to right. Let's just see what that can create. Ooh, it's quite nice actually. I don't feel this is possibly quite the best subject to do this with. But it's all trial and error, and I think one of the great things I'm finding about speaking to other photographers that do genres of photography that interest me is just being able to try out different techniques and just to allow your creativity to run wild and just see what you can create. So the first images of the evening, this beautiful tree here that sadly died, and we're trying to capture the best of what it's got left. 5 seconds seems really long. I'll show you how I got on. Do you know, I find with ICM photography that it is really difficult to teach it because every single subject you're shooting is different, and every single time you come out you're using different settings to get different results, but you're also using different settings to get the same results. So I've just done, that sounds a bit, that doesn't quite make sense, but let me try and explain. I find that it's not about necessarily your shutter speed that you're using when you're doing ICM photography. It's more about how you're moving. How quickly are you moving? How slowly are you moving? Is your subject moving as well? Because these, every time a little bit of wind gets up, they start to move as well. So you're kind of battling with a number of different things, and it's so hard to teach ICM photography because every single image you take is going to be different. You're going to be experimenting with different shutter speeds, experimenting with different motions. So I was finding there with the 5 seconds, I don't quite feel it was working necessarily with this subject, but by changing my settings so that it was down at like 1.6 of a second, I was finding I was getting slightly more definition within these needles, and I was just much preferring the results I was getting. And I think it's about the subject more than your actual camera settings. And when doing this type of photography, I think it's just all about trial and error, because it's so creative. And I know some of you do not like ICM photography, you do not understand it, and that was me a year ago. But I have to say, I'm falling in love with it more and more, and I'm loving the creativity that it's allowing within my photography. So yeah, I think that's a revelation really tonight, is the fact that you can't really know until you start taking the images what shutter speed is going to work best for the images. Oh, I love that shot. Okay, I just took a really nice shot, and what am I at? That's not even at half a second, that's actually quite a fast shutter speed. But yeah, it just shows, just got to play around and see what you can capture. Now this light is the sort of thing that I really wanted to utilise this evening, that gorgeous evening orange glow that's coming through the woodland here. And it's tricky, really tricky to capture this, of course. You know, the woodland's very dark with some very bright light on it, and I don't really know how this is going to work in terms of ICM, but I want to give it a go. I want to see how capturing something like this is going to create some different styles of photography. Because after all, photography is all about using the light, isn't it? It's about finding the light, capturing the light, being able to show it in its best form. And of course, capturing, as I say, in the woodland, when you've got that dark and light contrast going on, it can be very, very challenging. But if I can try and do some ICM with this, I'm wondering if I can actually make it something decent. Because if I was just to take a shot of this woodland right now as it is, not particularly captivating. I mean, it's all right, but it's not going to win any awards, is it? It's not the most exciting photograph in the world. But if I try and incorporate some ICM into this, I'm really excited to see what effect that's going to have, and if I can bring this woodland area to life in a new and exciting way. So yeah, let's give it a go. I'm really enjoying the process of getting creative, really creative with photography. This evening, I'm not quite sure how successful this evening has been, but I think every trip out is a learning experience. And what got me into ICM in the first place was photographing things like grass, which normally you wouldn't even consider photographing. You just think, oh, it's grass, we cut it, it grows in nature, but really, what's the interest when it comes to including it in photographs? But see, when you can get down to photograph something like this, and you can play around with something like ICM, it's actually incredible what sort of images you end up coming away with. I've just found this whole process of delving into new worlds like this that I would never in the past have thought about shooting. A really exciting one to explore. And yeah, it just, what I love, this is what we were discussing in the interview, what I love about ICM is you can literally do it anywhere with literally any subject imaginable. And suddenly you come to a location which this location is not great for landscape photography, There's no interesting like proper focal points. You've got very challenging light to work with. It's a very overgrown woodland with a lot of mess in it in terms of finding a crisp, clean composition. But when you can ignore the woodland as a whole and just start photographing elements of it like this, like I said, that whole new world of creativity is beginning to be explored. And of course you don't have to do ICM to enjoy this. You could do styles of photography like macro photography, for instance. But what I'm loving so much and what I'm thinking about, which is something that Kaisa spoke about so deeply within the video, was her love for colour. And I too have a very deep connection with colour. I always have done. And I think people used to always say to me, Kim, why don't you do black and white photography? Because you could make those images so much better if they were in black and white. And I do delve into black and white photography from time to time. But for me, colour is such an emotive thing. And that's why I just love including colour in my images. Colours can uplift you, they can bring you down. They can do so much, and being down here right now with this lush green grass that's covered in water, and it's beautiful, it's rich and it's vibrant and it's this gorgeous living organism here in nature, and being able to connect with it through a style of photography like this, it just makes coming outdoors so much more exciting than it already was. And it allows that connection. One thing I've been teaching people in recent weeks within my workshops and things that I've been doing is I ask them, what got you into photography in the first place? And what got me into photography was wanting to connect more deeply with the natural world. And being able to do something like this certainly helps you to do that. So to finish today off on the colour idea, that grass, a beautiful lush green, we now come to something that I think everybody loves to admire at this time of year and to smell, because it smells amazing, is of course the gorse bushes. And they're beautiful yellow colours. So thinking more about that colour element and what yellow can symbolise, and trying to end today with this happy atmosphere out in this evening, which is beautiful in itself, and then to finish it off with the yellow happiness and smiliness of this gorse bush. That's where I'd like to finish this evening. So let's see, I'm not sure if ICM is going to work very well with this, but you've just got to try it and see how things turn out. So let's give it a go, and if any of the images are any good, I'll share them with you now. This evening, what I've learnt by this process is the importance of heading out to somewhere that you feel really inspired to head to in that moment in time. So last night I was meant to come here and film this video, and yesterday afternoon I was so excited about it and I couldn't wait to come here, and then last minute something came up last night that meant I couldn't come, and I was kicking myself because I was just like, I felt this massive pull to come here. And then I thought, I'll just go tomorrow night, I'm free tomorrow night, I'll go tomorrow night. I came here tonight and it's been a good experience, I've enjoyed it, and I'm not sure, I never know with ICM until I go home whether I'm going to be happy with the images or not. But I think there's possibly one or two shots I got tonight that I'm happy with. But I haven't felt as inspired tonight about coming here as I did last night. And I felt a little bit deflated this evening. I've got to say, being here 100% beats being at home. Being out in the evening when it's lovely and calm like this, listening to the birds and being out in nature and just connecting with it, you can't really beat that. But I've just felt from a creative point of view, I've been struggling tonight. And I think it's because I wasn't quite in the right frame of mind like I was last night. And tonight, all I keep dreaming about is being at the coastline and continuing my geology project that I started a few months ago now, that I've not actually done that much for. But right now, I just want to be on the sea front, by the coast, walking on the rocks, watching the sunset, and being in the sort of landscape that inspires me more than any other. So I can't promise this, but I'm hoping that in the coming days I'll get down to the coastline, to one of my favourite locations, and just begin doing more of this geology photography. Forget about ICM for a little while, or maybe incorporate that into the geology photography. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll see how I feel and what inspiration comes to me on the day. But hopefully next week my video will be about geology and about the coastline and about connecting with that properly, because I've been actually wanting to do that now for a few months, but for one reason or another the weather's just not been great, or I've not had the time. But yeah, I'm hoping in the coming days that will be my what I'll spend my time doing. Because yeah, I think it's so important when it comes to creativity to be creative when you feel like being creative, and to go to the places that inspire you the most when you feel inspired to go to them. And I just feel like if I'd come here last night, I would have been so excited, because I was so excited. But tonight it's been much more of a relaxed, calm evening, which, like I say, has been beautiful in its own way. But my photography, I think, has really reflected that. I don't feel like I've had that passion and as enthusiasm for this as I would have had last night. I just wanted to end on that, really. It's a good thought, I think, to end on. Always go out when you feel inspired to, because that's when you're most creative, and that's when you're going to enjoy the experience the most. But even if you don't feel inspired, just get out anyway, because it's beautiful nevertheless. Yeah. And right now, I don't feel particularly inspired to do any more photography, but I just want to sit here and listen to the birds as the sun sets, because it is so beautiful. As always, I want to say a huge thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all again next time.